When your family celebrates your siblings' illegal wealth while mocking your honest struggle, do you break or do you build? This is the story of Chidi Okafor, a first-class graduate who learned that the longest route is sometimes the only one that leads home. A tale of patience, perseverance, and the price of integrity in a world that rewards shortcuts. The fluorescent lights in the small parlor flickered as Chidi sat on the wooden stool his mother had placed farthest from the family circle. It was Christmas Day, 2019, and the Okafor family meeting was in full swing. His uncle Emeka, draped in expensive agbada, was speaking about family progress when he paused mid-sentence and pointed at Chidi. "You, the one with first-class honors, what have you achieved? Your younger brother Obinna just bought a Lexus ES350, and your sister Adanna moved your mother to a new flat. But you, the graduate, what have you brought home? Shame." Chidi's throat tightened. He wanted to speak, to defend himself, to explain that he was trying, that jobs were scarce, that he refused to compromise his values. But before he could part his lips, his Aunt Ngozi raised her hand dismissively. "Let him keep quiet. When he has something to show, then he can talk. Right now, the ones feeding this family should speak first." The room erupted in agreement. Chidi's eyes found his mother's face across the room, searching for support, for anything. She looked away. That night, lying on the thin mattress in his one-room apartment in Owerri, Chidi stared at his FUTO certificate hanging on the cracked wall. First-class honors in mechanical engineering. He had been so proud the day he graduated in 2017. His father, who had passed away 2 years before his graduation, had always said, "Excellence is never wasted." But now, 2 years after graduation, Chidi was beginning to wonder if his father had been wrong. Chidi's struggle had begun the moment he left the Federal University of Technology, Owerri. With his exceptional results, he had expected job offers to flow like the Otamiri River during rainy season. Instead, he faced the harsh reality that no classroom had prepared him for. The first year after graduation was the hardest. He had applied to over 200 companies, oil firms, manufacturing plants, construction companies, engineering consultancies. The responses were either silence or the familiar phrase, "We'll keep your CV on file." Some interviews required processing fees of 50,000 naira or more, money he didn't have. Others hinted that he needed connections or should know somebody who knows somebody. Meanwhile, his younger siblings had taken different paths. Obinna, who had barely scraped through a private university with a third-class degree in business administration, had found his fortune in what he called online business. Chidi knew better. Obinna was deep into Yahoo Yahoo, internet fraud. His brother spent nights on his laptop crafting elaborate stories to scam unsuspecting foreigners. Within a year, Obinna had moved from his old Nokia phone to the latest iPhone, from public transport to his own car. Adanna, their sister, had dropped out of university entirely. At 23, she had embraced what she euphemistically called runs, a lifestyle of dating older, wealthy men who showered her with money and gifts in exchange for companionship and more. She lived in a serviced apartment in Owerri and wore designer clothes that cost more than Chidi's yearly budget. The transformation of his siblings from struggling young adults to affluent spenders happened so quickly that it left Chidi dizzy. More painful than their choices, though, was the family's response. His mother, who once preached about hard work and godliness, now proudly showed off photos of Adanna's new iPhone to church members. She told neighbors about Obinna's successful online export business. When relatives visited and admired the new television Obinna had bought for the house, she beamed with pride. But when they asked about Chidi, her first son, her face would cloud over. "That one is still searching," she would say quietly, as if his unemployment was a shameful disease. The turning point of Chidi's humiliation came during his grandmother's 80th birthday celebration in the village. The extended family had gathered under a large canopy, and after the prayers and feasting, it was time for each branch of the family to present their gifts and updates. When it was the Okafor family turn, Obinna stood up confidently, dressed in a crisp white kaftan. "Mama," I addressed their grandmother, "I have brought you 100,000 naira to celebrate your long life." The crowd erupted in applause. Adanna followed, her heels clicking on the concrete. "Mama, I bought you this gold necklace and matching earrings." More cheers. Then Chidi's mother looked at him, and the expectation in her eyes was clear. He stood up slowly, feeling every eye on him. "Mama, I brought you a card and my prayers for many more years." The silence that followed was deafening. Then Uncle Emeka's voice cut through the air. Sit down, Chidi. When you have something substantial to contribute, then you can stand with your siblings. Chidi sat down, his face burning with shame. He heard whispers around him. First class for what? Education is not everything. At least his siblings know how to make money. That night, alone in his room, Chidi broke down. He cried for the first time since his father's death. He cried for the dreams that seemed to be dying, for the respect he had lost, for the family that had turned their backs on him because he refused to steal, to defraud, to sell his body or his conscience. But even in that dark moment, something in him refused to break completely. The next morning, Chidi made a decision. If the jobs weren't coming to him, he would make himself so valuable that employers could not ignore him. He began a rigorous self-improvement regime. He woke up at 5 a.m. every day and spent 2 hours studying advanced instrumentation and control engineering online. He had realized that during his job search, many positions required specialized skills beyond his university education. So, he learned about SCADA systems, PLC programming, DCS operations, and industrial automation. During the day, he took whatever work he could find. He taught maths and physics to secondary school students for a pittance. He worked as a site assistant for a local contractor mixing cement under the hot sun for 3,000 naira a day. He repaired generators and electrical faults in the neighborhood. The work was hard and the pay was meager, but it kept him afloat and gave him practical experience. At night, he studied more. He joined online engineering forums, took free courses on Coursera and edX, and earned certificates in process control, safety instrumented systems, and industrial network security. His one-room apartment became a classroom, his laptop his professor. His siblings mocked him. Chidi, all those certificates cannot buy pure water. Obinna laughed one day, polishing his new car. Why not wise up? I can show you how to make real money online. Forget this suffering. Adanna was more subtle, but equally discouraging. Brother, you are wasting your time. My boyfriend works in an oil company. He says those jobs are for people with connections. You don't have any connections. Just relax and let us take care of Mama. Even his mother began to pressurize him. Chidi, whatever Obinna is doing, why can't you do it too? At least try. This you're studying. What is it producing? Your mates are building houses. But Chidi held firm. His father's words echoed in his mind. Excellence is never wasted. He chose to believe it, even when all evidence suggested otherwise. The breakthrough came in September 2020, 3 years after his graduation. Chidi was browsing a job site more out of habit than hope when he saw a posting. Instrumentation engineer, Seplat Energy, Imo State. Requirements, degree in mechanical or electrical or instrumentation engineering, knowledge of DCS, PLC, SCADA systems, and safety instrumented systems. His heart raced. Every single requirement matched his qualifications and the skills he had been acquiring. He spent the entire night perfecting his application, tailoring his CV to highlight every relevant certification and practical experience. 2 weeks later, he received an email inviting him for an assessment test. He scored 92%. Then came the technical interview. The panel was impressed by his theoretical knowledge and his practical approach to solving instrumentation problems. One interviewer noted, "You have certifications here that some of our current engineers don't have." In November 2020, Chidi received the offer letter. Instrumentation engineer at Seplat Energy's gas plant in Imo State. The salary was more than he had imagined, 450,000 naira monthly, plus allowances, health insurance, and pension. He read the letter 3 times before it felt real. Chidi didn't announce his new job immediately. He quietly reported to work, underwent the company's safety training, and began his duties. The work was challenging but fulfilling. He was part of a team managing sophisticated instrumentation systems that controlled gas production and processing. Everything he had studied, every sleepless night, every certificate he had earned, it all came together. 3 months into the job, he received his first major payment, salary plus allowances plus signing bonus. It was more than money he had seen in 3 years combined. He went to the market and bought his mother a brand new refrigerator, a generator, and a smartphone. When he arrived at the family house with these gifts, his mother screamed with joy. "Chidi, where did you find this money? Did you finally wise up?" "No, Mama, I got a job, a real job." The news spread through the family like wildfire. Suddenly, the same relatives who had told him to keep quiet were calling to congratulate him. Uncle Emeka, who had humiliated him, sent a message, "I always knew you would make it. That's why I was pushing you." Obinna and Adanna's reactions were more complex. His brother tried to hide his surprise. "That's good, bro, but you know my business is still bringing more money, right?" Adanna just hugged him and said nothing. But Chidi noticed something in the following months. The shine was fading from their siblings' ill-gotten wealth. Obinna's Yahoo Yahoo business began to struggle. Banks were clamping down on suspicious transactions, and many of his foreign clients had grown wiser to the scams. The money that had flowed so easily before became a trickle. The car that had been his pride began to show signs of neglect. He couldn't maintain the lifestyle anymore. Adanna's situation was worse. One of her wealthy boyfriends had infected her with a disease that required expensive treatment. Another one had publicly humiliated her when his wife found out about their affair. The designer clothes were still in her closet, but the light had gone out of her eyes. The money that came so easily was spent just as quickly, with nothing sustainable to show for it. Meanwhile, Chidi's life stabilized and grew. He was promoted within a year to senior instrumentation engineer. He started building a house in the village, not with flashy, unsustainable money, but with honest income that would last. He enrolled in a part-time master's degree in instrumentation and control engineering. The family dynamics shifted completely. Now, when there were family meetings, Chidi was asked to speak first. His opinions were sought on important decisions. His mother bragged about him to everyone. "My son, the engineer,"
at Seplat Energy. The same Uncle Emeka, who had shamed him, now brought his own son to Chidi for career advice. "Tell him what you did. Teach him how to be successful like you." Chidi looked at his young cousin and smiled. "It's simple," he said. "Get your degree. Don't stop learning. Don't take shortcuts and be patient. Excellence is never wasted." On Christmas Day 2021, exactly 2 years after his humiliation, Chidi sat at the same family meeting. But this time, he sat in the center, in the place of honor. His uncle Emeka was praising him, calling him the pride of the family. As Chidi looked around the room, he caught Obinna's eye. His brother looked tired, stressed, older than his years. Adanna sat quietly in the corner, a shadow of her former confident self. Chidi felt no satisfaction in their struggles. Instead, he felt sadness for the paths they had chosen and relief for the path he had refused to take. That night, as he drove back to his apartment in his modest but dignified Honda, bought with his own money, no loans, Chidi reflected on his journey. The mockery, the shame, the pressure, the loneliness, all of it had been a test of his character, his values, his father's teachings. He had passed. The road of integrity had been longer, harder, and lonelier than the shortcuts his siblings took, but it had led him to a destination they could never reach: genuine success, sustainable wealth, and most importantly, peace of mind. As he unlocked his door and saw his certificate on the wall, he whispered his father's words one more time: "Excellence is never wasted." And finally, completely, he believed it.